My name is Edith Carter, and I'm 77 years old. I wasn't expecting a grand celebration or a red carpet. All I had looked forward to was dinner at my son's house, a simple meal, a seat at the table, and a few hours with the family I had spent a lifetime supporting. I had just finished adjusting the navy blue dress I wore on special occasions. It wasn't fancy, just neat, respectable. The kind of dress Marissa, my daughter-in-law, wouldn't roll her eyes at. I glanced at the clock. It was a little past 6. Dinner was supposed to begin at 7. Then my phone buzzed. I reached for my glasses, expecting a reminder from Garrett, or maybe a last-minute question about dessert. But instead, I saw the message. You weren't invited. My wife doesn't want you there. Just like that. 8 words, not a call, not a conversation, a text message. For a moment, I thought it had to be a mistake. Maybe it was sent to the wrong person. Maybe Garrett's phone had been hacked. But no, it was his number. It was his tone. I sat down slowly, the phone still in my hand. My heart wasn't just breaking, it was unraveling. So memories flashed in my mind. Garrett as a boy, clinging to my hand on his first day of school. Garrett at 12, crying when his dog passed away. Garrett introducing Marissa to me, full of excitement. And now Garrett, a grown man, telling me I wasn't welcome. I stared at the wall, not moving, not crying, just silent. That was the moment something inside me shifted. After all the years, after all the giving, maybe it was time to stop showing up for people who made it clear they didn't want me there. The house was quiet, too quiet. I stood up, walked over to my secretary desk, an old piece my mother had left me, and opened the drawer where I kept all the financial documents. Every folder was labeled, every receipt filed. I pulled out the thickest folder. It was labeled Garrett. Inside, there was a lifetime of giving. A $20,000 check to help him launch his business, one that folded in less than a year. Tuition receipts from when Marissa went back to school to earn her real estate license. Bank transfers for roof repairs, a down payment on their new SUV, the kitchen remodel Marissa just had to have. Each piece of paper told a story, not one of generosity but of expectation. My wallet had been their safety net. My name had been the invisible ink on every corner of that new house. 6 months ago, Garrett had called me to say they'd found the perfect home, a beautiful townhouse overlooking the river, part of an exclusive new development. He said it would be a place for the whole family. Mom, you'll have your own corner, he told me. That corner, apparently, didn't come with a chair at the dinner table. I looked down at the brochure, still sitting on my kitchen table. I had paid $120,000 toward the down payment. It wasn't a loan. It wasn't an investment. It was a gift, a mother's way of saying, I'm here. I care. And now it felt like I had bought myself out of their lives. I leaned back and whispered the question I hadn't dared ask for years: was this love or just a transaction? For the first time, I didn't rush to excuse them. I didn't defend their choices. I simply sat in the truth I had spent a lifetime giving. And they had gotten used to it. I didn't sleep that night. The text kept replaying in my mind, over and over, not invited. My wife doesn't want you there. By sunrise, I knew what I had to do. I made myself a strong cup of tea, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at the stack of papers I had pulled from the drawer. Then I picked up the phone and called the bank. Good morning. Fayetteville Community Bank. How may I help you? My name is Edith Carter, I said clearly. I need to suspend all automatic payments from my accounts immediately. There was a pause on the line. All payments, ma'am? Yes, every single one. And I also need to revoke the power of attorney granted to my son, Garrett Carter. I could hear the woman on the other end typing. That's a significant change, Mrs. Carter. We'll need your signature for the full process, but I can begin the suspension now. That's what I want. Start today. The silence that followed was not awkward, it was powerful. I had supported my son, his wife, their lifestyle, their ambitions, and their obligations for over 2 decades. But that morning I remembered what James, my late husband, always said. Edith, love them, but don't let them walk on you. When the woman confirmed that all 174 automatic payments were now blocked, I thanked her, hung up the phone, and exhaled deeply. I hadn't realized how heavy it all had been. The years of small compromises, the quiet dismissals, the holidays spent alone while still footing the bills. That morning, I didn't just cancel payments. I reclaimed space in my own life. My phone buzzed again. Garrett. I didn't answer. Instead, I typed a simple message and stared at it for a long time. Time to pay your own way. Then I turned the phone off and turned a corner in my life. By the time Garrett showed up at my door, the kettle was already on the stove. He didn't knock politely. He rang the bell in that impatient, sharp way that said he wasn't here for a chat, he was here for control. I opened the door and he walked right in without waiting for an invitation. "Mom, what's going on?" he asked, the worry in his eyes barely covering the irritation beneath. The mortgage bounced. Marissa's car payment didn't go through. The bank called about the suspended authorizations. "Did you cancel everything?" I nodded. "Yes, I did." He blinked. "All of it?" "All 174 transactions." Garrett sank into the living room chair like the wind had been knocked out of him. "Why?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just looked at him and said, "You uninvited me from your house, Garrett. The one I helped pay for. You sent a message saying your wife didn't want me there, and you didn't even try to stop her." "That was a mistake," he stammered. "Marissa was upset. I didn't mean it." "You didn't mean to say it, or you didn't mean for there to be consequences?" I asked quietly. He looked away. I poured 2 cups of tea, placing one in front of him. He didn't touch it. "We have bills, Mom," he said finally. "Loans, Toby's tuition, the house. You've always helped us." I did, I agreed. But that help became expected. And then it became invisible. Garrett opened his mouth to respond, but I raised my hand. "Tell me one thing you've done for me, Garrett," I asked, my voice soft but steady. "One thing you did not because you had to, but because you wanted to. One thing that didn't involve you needing something from me." He sat in silence. And in that silence, I found my answer. 2 days later, it was Toby who showed up. He looked disheveled, wrinkled shirt, dark circles under his eyes, and that nervous energy of someone who had never truly faced consequences. I let him in without saying much. He dropped onto the couch and rubbed his hands together. "Grandma, I need help," he began. "My credit card's been frozen. I can't pay my rent. My car's overdue. I'm in trouble." I sat across from him, calm and composed. "How much do you owe?" He hesitated. "About 7,000. "What did you spend it on?" He shrugged, avoiding my eyes. "Some stuff, a new phone, a trip with friends, a few parties." I nodded slowly. "You've been working for 2 years now, right? At the insurance company?" "Yeah." "So why haven't you learned to manage your money?" He looked like a child being scolded, not a 23-year-old man. "I guess I always thought I could ask Mom and Dad. Or you." "That's the problem," I said. "You've all gotten used to thinking I'd always be here to fix things. But I'm not your backup plan, Toby. I'm not your bank." He leaned forward, desperation creeping in. "Grandma, please. Just this once. I swear I'll pay you back." "No," I said firmly. "But I will offer you something else." He looked confused. "Like what?" "My lawyer, Mr. Whitaker, is looking for a part-time assistant. Feeling, answering phones. It won't solve everything, but it's honest work." Toby blinked. "You do that for me?" "I love you," I said, "but I'm done enabling you. My love is no longer measured in money." He sat quietly, unsure of what to say. For the first time, I didn't give in. And for the first time, he heard the word no, out of anger, but out of love. Real love doesn't always feel comfortable. Sometimes it sounds a lot like a boundary. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, Rebecca showed up with a bag of groceries and a soft knock on the door. She didn't come for money. She didn't come to plead on anyone's behalf. She just came to check on me. "Grandma," she said as I let her in, "I saw Dad earlier. He looked lost. Mom's furious. Toby's sulking. The house is chaos." I didn't respond right away. We unpacked the groceries together. She chopped vegetables while I boiled pasta. After a while, she asked quietly, "Are you okay?" I looked at her, truly looked at her. Rebecca had always been different, quieter, more thoughtful. She never asked for much. She called on my birthday. She visited without a reason. She hugged me just a little longer. "I'm okay," I said. "For the first time in a very long time, I think I'm actually okay." She smiled. "Good, because I think you're doing the right thing." I raised an eyebrow. "You do?" She nodded. "I've seen how they use you, especially Mom. She's always dressed in the best, drives the best, dines at the best, and somehow it's always you footing the bill. It startled me to hear those words from someone so young. But she wasn't just a child anymore. She was a woman, and she saw clearly. "You've taken care of everyone for so long," Rebecca added. "It's time someone took care of you." We sat down for dinner, just the two of us. No tension, no manipulation, just a simple meal and honest conversation. Before she left, she hugged me tight. "I'll always be here for you, Grandma, not for your money. For you." I kissed her cheek. That's all I ever wanted. In a house that had echoed with demands and expectations, Rebecca's presence was the one thing that felt real. It reminded me what family should feel like: safe, sincere, and free. The next day, Garrett called again. "Mom, we need to talk, as a family." His voice was tight, rehearsed. I could hear Marissa in the background. "Tomorrow at 2, I said. "My house. No surprises." But of course there were surprises. At exactly 2:00, Garrett showed up first. He looked exhausted, shirt wrinkled, eyes puffy. "Mom," he said, "I wanted to talk to you before everyone else arrived." "Everyone else?" He hesitated. "Marissa, she invited a few people, her parents, her sister. They're concerned." I stepped to the window and froze. 3 cars had just pulled into my driveway. Out stepped Marissa in full glamour, followed by her parents, siblings, even a couple of their friends. I turned back to Garrett. "You brought an audience?" "She thinks he started," but I held up my hand. When the doorbell rang, I opened it slowly. Marissa stood there, flanked by her delegation. "Good afternoon, Edith," she said loudly, projecting her voice. "We're here to discuss this situation as a family." "This is my home," I said quietly. "Not a courtroom, not a boardroom, just my home. And I didn't invite any of them." Marissa blinked, clearly not expecting pushback. "You, Garrett, Toby, and Rebecca may come in. The rest can wait outside or leave." Marissa's smile faltered. She turned to her family. "Please wait in the cars. We won't be long." Reluctantly, they retreated. Once inside, I faced my son, my daughter-in-law, and my 2 grandchildren. "So," I said calmly, "who wants to tell me what this circus is really about?" Marissa launched into a speech. "Your financial decision affects all of us. My parents' retirement plans, Garrett's brother's situation, even Toby's future." I listened, arms crossed, and said nothing. When she finally paused for breath, I looked at her and asked, "And when did I become responsible for all of that?" No one answered. Because deep down they all knew the truth. They hadn't come to fix a relationship. They had come to salvage their lifestyle. The room was heavy with silence after my question. Garrett finally spoke, voice low. "Mom, we've come to rely on your help. You've always been there. We just didn't think you'd ever stop." I nodded. "Exactly. You didn't think, you just took." I turned to Toby. "How many times have you visited me just because you wanted to? Not because you needed money." He shifted in his seat. "And Marissa," I said, facing her, "tell me one single thing you've done for me without expectation." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. "You see," I continued, "what hurts isn't just the money. It's the erasure. The way I disappeared from your hearts the moment I stopped paying." Marissa's mask slipped. Her voice hardened. "This is manipulation. You're trying to guilt us." "No," I said. "I'm telling you the truth. For once." She stood abruptly. "You'll regret this. When you're alone, when no one's there, you'll regret pushing us away." I didn't flinch. "Family isn't just a word we use when we want something," I said softly. "It's a choice we make every day with our actions, not our invoices." Garrett looked up, eyes glassy. "What do you want us to do, Mom? Apologize? Beg?" "No," I said. "I want you to grow up. I want you to stop confusing love with dependence. And I want you to leave." The words were calm, but they landed like thunder. Toby stood without protest. Marissa muttered something under her breath as she stormed out. Garrett lingered, unsure. "I'll be here," I told him. "If you ever want to talk, really talk, not about money, but about us." He nodded slowly and followed the others out the door. Only Rebecca stayed behind to hug me. "I'm proud of you, Grandma," she whispered. I didn't reply. I just held her close. Because for the first time in a long time, I had nothing to prove and nothing to give but the truth. 6 months passed. And for the first time in decades, I wasn't anyone's emergency contact, anyone's financial plan, anyone's silent sponsor. I was just Edith. I spent mornings on the porch, sipping coffee and reading books I'd long set aside. I took walks through the park where James and I used to stroll. I even signed up for an art class at the community center, something I'd always wanted but never dared prioritize. Rebecca visited often. She never asked for anything. She just came to talk, to laugh, to share her world with me. She was my only connection to the family now, and that was enough. As for Garrett and Marissa, the calls dwindled. After a few more attempts, some apologetic, some demanding they stopped altogether, I heard from Rebecca that they sold the house and moved to a smaller apartment. Marissa took on extra work. Garrett finally learned how to manage a budget. Toby, to my surprise, took the job with Mr. Whitaker. I ran into him once at the grocery store. He looked tired, but different, less entitled, more grounded. We exchanged a quiet hello. That was enough. And me? I went to Italy. It was James' dream, one we'd postponed too long. But Rebecca insisted I go. Do it for you, Grandma, she said. For once, just for you. So I did. Now I sit on a terrace in Tuscany, watching the sunset over rolling vineyards. Laureen, my oldest friend, laughs beside me as she scribbles notes in her travel journal. You look lighter, she says. I am, I reply. Because I finally laid down the weight of other people's expectations. And in doing so, I found the only thing I ever truly wanted. Peace. Not just the absence of noise, but the presence of self. The quiet strength of someone who no longer needs to be needed to feel whole. That evening, as twilight painted the Tuscan sky in gold and violet, my phone buzzed. Garrett's name lit up the screen. 6 months ago, I would have answered before the second ring, eager, hopeful, already rehearsing ways to fix whatever was wrong. But now I simply looked at the screen and let it fade to black. I didn't need to hear another promise. I didn't need to be pulled back into a cycle I'd finally stepped out of. Instead, I picked up my wine glass, raised it to the horizon, and whispered, to me. The version of me that had always come last. The version that stayed silent at dinner tables where I was unwelcome, who smiled through birthdays alone, who paid bills with shaking hands and called it love. She was gone now. In her place stood a woman who had learned that freedom doesn't come from letting go of people, it comes from letting go of permission. I don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing peace. I don't owe anyone my savings, my time, or my seat at a table I was never really welcome to. What I do owe at this stage in life is honesty with myself. Rebecca texted later that night, a photo of her new apartment and a simple message, Grandma, I can't wait for you to visit. I made you a room just yours, always. And with that, I smiled, because sometimes the legacy we leave behind isn't the money we gave or the house we built. It's the truth we finally spoke. And the boundary we were brave enough to draw. If this story spoke to your heart, share it. Because someone out there needs to hear, it's never too late to take your power back. And you're never too old to begin again.